Love every Jew. I want to tell you, I happen to agree. It sounds like an impossible commandment. Impossible. How can you love every Jew? Some Jews just get on your nerves. Some Jews do things to you that irritate you or upset you or that are bad for you. And loving every Jew is a commandment, but if there's an impossible commandment, then surely we can do something about it. Maybe we can get a lot of signatures. Let's start tonight. Let's get everybody to sign a petition. And we will petition HaKadosh Baruch Hu and tell him this is an impossible commandment, merciful Father in heaven. How do you do that? Love every Jew? Of course, we're talking about the very famous commandment of you shall, it's a Torah commandment, you shall love your fellow man like yourself. Incidentally, there is an opinion that it doesn't only apply to Jews, that you have to love the whole world like yourself. Doesn't matter who they are or what they are. The majority opinion is that it's referring to Jews. But, you know, let's go with the other opinion for a second that says it's everybody. Then how do we deal with that? We got a lot of anti-Semites in this world. I don't know if you've noticed. It reminds me of a joke I want to share with you. There was a bar somewhere in the South, you know, where there's a lot of anti-Semitism. And there was a man sitting in this bar, obviously Jewish, having a drink quietly. The bar was packed from one end to the other, and then the door opens, and who walks in? One of the best-known anti-Semites of the region. He walks in, he sees this Jew over there with a drink in his hand, he's very angry. In a loud voice, he says to the bartender, "Bartender, I want you to get a drink for everybody in this bar, from one end to the other, no exception, doesn't matter what they want to drink, except for this dirty Jew." So, the bartender, one drink after another, a beer, a whiskey, whatever it was, excuse me, Jack Daniels, screwdrivers or whatever they call them, and everybody's drinking very happy. He looks at the Jew to get his reaction. The Jew just smiles at him and says, "Thank you." He's infuriated. He wants the guy to shout and scream. "What do you mean you're smiling at me saying thank you?" So he gets up again. "Bartender, another round of drinks for everybody in this bar, from that end to that end. Whatever they want to order, it's on me. I'm paying, except for this stinky Jew." He does it, and then he turns to it. He says, "This time I got him." And the Jew's just sitting there with his drink, and he says, smiling, "Thank you." He can't take this anymore. He does it one more time. Same thing happens. He goes to the bartender. He says, "Bartender, I've insulted this Jew like you wouldn't believe. And all he does is sit there, smile, and say thank you. Is there something wrong with him?" The bartender says, "No, sir. He's the owner of the bar." All right, as I said, however, the majority of people say that this commandment refers to how we deal with fellow Jews. So that's really what I'm going to be concentrating on here tonight. It says in the parasha of Kedoshim, in Sefer HaKadosh Vayikra, a lot of things, a lot of commandments. Of course, the Torah is essentially commandments. It says, I'm going to read them to you, some of them. Lo ta'asu awel b'mishpat, you shall not do something wrong like unrighteousness in judgment. Lo tisaf enedal, you shall not lift, in other words, respect the face of the poor. Velo tehdar penei gadol, and you shall not give honor to the face of someone who is big, important. Besedek tishpot amithecha, you shall judge your fellow Jews with righteousness. So this is already a little bit complicated, and it gets more intense. It says, Lo telech rachil be'amecha. You shall not say anything slanderous about your people. Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. You shall not stand on the blood of your neighbor. And God signs this, Ani Hashem. And then, Lo tisnai achicha bilbabecha. This is really ramping up. You must not hate your brother in your heart. Not just that you openly don't hate him, but in your heart you're not allowed to hate him. You shall surely reproach your neighbor, and not allow him to sin on this account, or not allow sin on his account. And then it says, as I say, really ramping it up, you cannot take revenge. You cannot harbor a grudge. I mean, this is really difficult. If you think about what the words are saying, you can't take revenge. Somebody hurts you and harms you. There's something wrong with you. You can't get even. I mean, isn't that how America works? I don't get mad, I just get even. No, you can't get even. But you can't even harbor a grudge. That means even in your heart, you can't say, the guy wouldn't lend me something, I'm not going to lend him something, or whatever it is. You just feel bad about what he's done to you. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to, in other words, let's repeat this one, not revenge or harbor a grudge, et bnei amecha, to your own people, the sons of your people. And then finally, that pasuk ends with, ahabta lere'acha kamocha, and God signs it. Ani Hashem, and you shall love your neighbor. Not only you can't harbor a grudge, not only you can't do bad things to them, you have to love them like yourself. I am the Lord. I mean, this is dynamite. I don't know how you can do such a thing. And I guess that's why we're sitting here today. I was hoping I would be sitting down, you'd all be standing up here and explaining it to me. But you came in before me and you sat down on the chairs that I was going to sit on. So I guess I'm going to have to do the best that I can. So, it says in Menashe Derushim, why did the Torah forbid revenge or harboring grudges? That's really the question. Why? What is the purpose behind this commandment of don't take revenge and don't harbor a grudge? So, Rabbeinu the Hida in Devarim Ahadim, based on the Keli Yakar, and these are all being quoted in Menashe Derushim, tells a story, which I'll repeat to you in my own way. He tells a story as follows. There's a family on the beach. You know what the beach is, right? There's sand, there's sea, there's sun, there's breeze, there's a lot of people enjoying the sun and everything else. So what are they doing? Each one is doing something different, and the little boy of the family decides he's going to build a sandcastle. That's a favorite pastime at the beach for little kids. He's going to build a sandcastle. So he has his little bucket and his little spade, and he's building it, getting a little bit of water, and he's building the sandcastle. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, till he has this beautiful sandcastle, and he's so proud of this sandcastle, which is there on the sand, and he's so proud of his handiwork. Along comes his bigger brother, and with the sleight of his hand, in one fell swoop, boom, he knocks down the sandcastle. Poor kid, I agree with you. The kid goes crying, bawling his eyes out to his father. He says, look what happened. I built this beautiful sandcastle. Look what my brother did. He knocked it down. Now he's thinking to himself, his father's going to let his bigger brother have it. He's going to beat him till he's black and blue. Obviously, this is an old story. Today, the kids are allowed to beat the parents, not the other way around. You know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So this is in the old days when the parents were allowed to beat their kids a little bit. He's going to beat him black and blue, and he's going to get what he deserves. And what does the father do? Not much. He tells him maybe, you shouldn't have done that. But nothing. He doesn't do anything. The little kid is stunned. What's going on here? What he didn't understand is the father has a different outlook and understands the situation a lot better. The kid only knows that he built this incredible sandcastle. And what happened was that his brother came along and destroyed it. But wait a minute. What is a sandcastle? Sandcastle is almost certainly not going to be standing again tomorrow. A little bit of breeze, a little bit of people on the beach walking up and down. The sea comes in and goes over it. There's no sandcastle anymore. Sandcastle is not something that you keep and you live in or anything of the sort. It's a temporary thing. You built it. It's a lot of fun. Maybe you take a picture of you standing next to it, and that's it. It's over. It's gone. So the father understood that and said, what am I going to punish my older son for? Because he knocked down a sandcastle. A sandcastle is a sandcastle. It's temporary. It's to be knocked down, and it will be knocked down. So maybe it wasn't nice that he did it right away, but it's not a big deal. Sometimes it appears to us that the damage that somebody does to us is huge. But that is because of our lack of understanding, because we can't see past our own horizons. What we have had destroyed is probably no more than this kid's sandcastle. Now, from this, we can presumably understand why it is sometimes we're so angry that we pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to let that guy have it. God doesn't listen. Why should he? He knows it's a sandcastle. He knows that what was done to us maybe was not so good, but he's not going to destroy this person over a sandcastle that was going to be destroyed anyway. It's like meaningless in this world. So it's like us crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like the son crying to his father. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the clear picture and the clear understanding of what it really means. So what the Keli Yakar is telling us is that God reacts with understanding and not with severe anger. He understands the situation, and just like the father didn't punish the older boy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu may not punish the person who did this to you. So what he is saying is now we can understand perfectly why the Torah forbade revenge and grudges. If we would step back for a moment, I can't do that because then I lose the microphone. But if we would step back for a moment and think about it, we would understand that the matters of this world that upset us, that get us worked up, get us agitated. They were so mad at this person for something they did to us. Maybe somebody in our family, maybe our spouse, maybe anybody. We're so mad, it's nothing more than a sandcastle built by the boy. It's nothing. And when someone comes and causes us harm or damage in this physical world, whether it's emotional, financial, whatever it might be, we need to understand that it's almost an irrelevant loss and nothing to get stressed over. The Rambam, Maimonides, writes, he says, going on, love your fellow Jew as you love yourself. He says, the Rambam is of the opinion that this means that you have to love every single Jew exactly how you love yourself, to the same extent. And let's be honest, we really, really, really love ourselves. Not everybody agrees with that, but this is the opinion of the Rambam. So he says, therefore, if that is the case, we must praise others. We have to care about their possessions, about their money. We have to, just the kind of care we would take about our own, we would have to take care of theirs. We have to take care of their dignity. And on the contrary, we're told if anyone humiliates somebody else and he gets honor from humiliating him, we're told he won't even have a portion in the world to come. Now, as I say, not everybody holds that you have to love each other like you love yourself. The Ramban, for instance, is one of those that says it's not possible. Rabbi Aqaba, of course, said it's kalal gadol b'Torah, that it's a very, very major concept, rule in the Torah, that you have to love your neighbor as yourself. So clearly from that, it does sound that Rabbi Aqaba is of the opinion that it is something very essential, and you do have to love each other like you love yourself. However, let's go to the parasha of Behar Sinai in Sefer Vayikra. Al tekach me'to neshech v'tharbi. You shall take, this is basically the commandment not to take any interest, that you cannot charge interest to another Jew. Ve'yaretha me'elokecha, but you shall fear your God. Ve'he ahicha imach. What this is saying is that you have to return it to him so that he will be able to live with you. We're going to concentrate on these words, Ve'he ahicha imach, that he may be able to live with you. It says in the Gemara of Baba Messiah, it tells us that Rabbi Yohanan says, the interpretation is that your brother may live with you means that if two people are traveling on a journey, let's say it's far from civilization, they're not near anywhere where there are stores that they can buy food and water, maybe they're in the desert, maybe there's miles and miles of desert. I want you to know, once I was flying over Saudi Arabia. Fortunately, it was just over it. And you look down from the window, and for the longest time, you just see desert and more desert and more desert and more desert. I have no idea how much desert I saw. I've never seen this much desert in my life. So I don't know where these people were. I don't think they were in Saudi Arabia. But anyway, they're traveling on a journey. They're far away from any built-up area. And it's hot. The sun is belting down. And they have no food or water, except one of them has this plastic bottle of water that he got from the supermarket. It doesn't say that in the Gemara. These are my words. Okay? So he's got this plastic bottle of water. The problem with plastic is in the heat of the sun, you know, the plastic is giving off chemicals and stuff. But anyway, they don't address that because maybe it was not made of plastic. So now, Ben Patura taught, what did he say? What are we going to do? We have one bottle of water. We got two people. We got an incredibly hot sun. We're not close to civilization. They get out their smartphones and they see that the nearest civilization is very, very far away. And they figure out, because there's an app that figures this out, that they're going to need water, but that one bottle of water is only good enough for one person. It will not let two people survive and get to their destination. So now, Ben Patura says, in such a case, it's better for both of them to drink and die. All right? That both of them should die. That's better than having one person drink and say to the other guy, it's been a pleasure, see you. After all, you know, you have to love the other person like yourself. So if you're going to love him like yourself, I guess that's what you would do. So that's what he says. You have to share this bottle of water, and you know you're both going to die, but at least share and share alike. And that's what they held till one day Rabbi Aqaba came along, and he said, no. This verse that says, that he may be able to live with you, tells us that your life takes precedence over his. From Rabbi Aqaba we learned that that is not the case. The one who owns the bottle, since they cannot both survive, but if one person drinks, he will survive and the other will die. Rabbi Aqaba says the person who owns the bottle, he is the one and only him to drink. Not have both of you die. And how do you learn this out? Because he says, with you. That means, first of all, you. First of all, you have to survive. And then once you have survived, you should do whatever you can to make him survive. So according to this, it sounds like it is not a question of, though the Rambam has an explanation for that also, which I'm not going into now, but we have two schools of thought. But according to the second school of thought, what we just heard, it would sound like, yes, you do have to put yourself forward, you have to take care of yourself, and then once you've done that, you have to take care of your neighbor. I want to tell you a story, because this whole concept of loving another person like you love yourself, is it doable? How do you do it? How do you put it into practice? So I want to tell you a story about Maran Mordechai Eliyahu alav Shalom, the Rishon LeZion, former chief rabbi of Israel. Apart from all those things, he was just a beautiful man. He was a caring man. There are books about him called Aveeno Shel Yisrael. Aveeno Shel Yisrael means the father of the Jewish people. Why? Because that's what he was. He loved every Jew from the bottom of his heart. And so there are these stories about him, and so many stories. And I want to tell you, I'm humbled that I had the zechut to also be in his foramot and to also benefit from him. This story was told by Rabbi Shlomo ben Eliyahu. It took place in the year 5744. So it was some years ago now. Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, alav Shalom, was to give 3 lectures in the south of Israel. And these were very heavily advertised lectures, far and wide. And you know how they advertise in Israel? They put up these huge posters and banners everywhere to say that the Rishon LeZion is coming to town. And everybody used to love to go and hear him speak. And he was going to be speaking in 3 cities, Netiboth, Sderot, and Ofakim. So on the appointed day, a bunch of them get into the car, expecting to see these huge crowds awaiting him, and he would speak Divrei Torah, and he was amazing at it. There are many of his works published today, which I would highly recommend to everybody. And the group went together. Included in the group was Hacham Yehuda Musafi, and they headed out for the first stop of the three, which was Nithiboth. So there they were headed for this huge hall where Maran Mordechai Eliyahu Alav Shalom was going to speak, and there would of course be tons of cars and tons of people and the lights shining and everything else. When they arrived at the appointed time, they couldn't believe their eyes. It was in total darkness. Not a car, not a soul. They don't know what to do. They go out, they look around. Try this door, it's locked. Try that door, it's locked. Try another door, it's locked. Suddenly, they see a huge banner. Shiur of Rav Mordechai Eliyahu is canceled. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu sees this, goes back to the car. The others are still looking around to find some explanation to what happened. And they found an explanation. They were astonished. They found flyers that a group of not so salubrious people had put out. They spread the word that the Rishon LeZion, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, was unwell and would not be coming to give a drasha. Unfortunately, in the land of Israel, more than here, you have this battle between different people, which is very, very sad, because I'll speak about it in a minute. So they were very, very upset, but Rav Mordechai Eliyahu was saying, no, I don't see in this the hand of man. I see in this the hand of God. An amazing person. Okay. He said, let's push on. That's what they did to us in Nitibot. Let's push on, and now we're going to Sderot. Hopefully there we'll have a huge crowd. They go to Sderot, they go to this big hall, and wouldn't you know it, they're greeted with the self-same situation. Total darkness, no cars, no people. Just one big banner, Shiur canceled. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu is unwell. Now, I would think at this point the others were saying, okay, they win. We don't understand what's going on. Let's go back to Yerushalayim. It's a long drive. Let's go back. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says, what are you saying? We have to go to Ofakim. However small the possibility, there's a possibility they didn't do this in Ofakim. It's a possibility people are waiting there to hear a Shiur Torah. He says, this is my responsibility in life. I have to undertake my work faithfully. We cannot say we're turning back. We have to go there. What if there are people who are there to study Torah? So they go to Ofakim. Remember, this is many years ago. No cell phones to call ahead. So they drive. And when they arrive at their final destination and went to the hall, surprise, surprise, the same sight greeted them. Darkness and no one and nothing. The difference was there was a security guard there, and he almost jumped. He says, they told us the shiur was canceled. While they were speaking, they saw a woman running across the street to go to the shiur. I guess she didn't get the memo, or the text, or however they communicated in those days. And she's running. Now listen, let me ask you something. Baruch Hashem, you're all here in numbers. A lot of you are standing. Forgive me. But could you imagine if somebody spread the word that there was no shiur and one person showed up? Would you expect there to be a shiur? Of course not. Thank you for saying no. Of course not. We'd say, look, we're really sorry. We don't know who did this. We're very upset, just like you are. We're going to reschedule it. Please come back. That's the thing to do. What did Rav Mordechai Eliyahu do? He tells the guard, open the gates. Somebody came to study Torah. I have to give the shiur. There's this huge hall. Huge, enormous, ginormous hall. And there's one woman sitting there. And the crowd, a few people that were with him, they brought the security guard in. I don't know if there were any other one or two people hanging around who were there. And they said that Maran Mordechai Eliyahu spoke with passion. He gave the full shiur, the whole lecture that he was going to give from beginning to end, leaving nothing out, as if he was talking to thousands of people. The rabbi was telling the story, said that he himself was astonished at the way the Hacham was giving over this class. All right, fast forward. Sometime later, the rabbi who's telling the story, his brother-in-law was also a rabbi, told him that he met a man who was Hoser b'teshuvah, a person who had become about teshuvah, had become religious. He was not religious and had become religious. And what was the thing that made that man religious? The man told him with great emotion and enthusiasm that the reason that he became religious, returns to teshuvah, was that he was there that night when Maran Mordechai Eliyahu spoke. And when he saw how the Hacham behaved that night, he said, if the Hacham was willing to speak, if the rabbi was willing to speak the way he did for just one woman, then it must be that there is real truth in the Torah. So this is the greatness of the man. But it is also the level of loving a fellow Jew that a person can reach. Unfortunately, like I was saying, there is an additional difficulty in the land of Israel. And we should address that, because the land of Israel is the land of Israel. You have to know that the land of Israel does not tolerate transgression by Jews. The reason why two Batei Mikdash, two temples were destroyed, is for sins. The first one because of Avodah Zarah, idolatry. But 72 years later, we went back. The second one was because of Sinat Hinam, hating each other for no reason, baseless hatred. Not loving your neighbor like yourself. And for that sin, thousands of years have passed and we're still not going back. And we're told, Kol dor, every generation which does not witness the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, it's as if it was destroyed in their day. So that must mean if we don't have a Beit HaMikdash in Israel, we're not loving each other. And each time when the Jews sinned, especially in the land of Israel, they were thrown out. And this is at times when we had the Beit HaMikdash, the holy temple with the sacrifices to be an atonement for us. Nevertheless, we were thrown out. Today, this is not Yerushalayim Benuyah. Jerusalem today that we love to go to is not the rebuilt Jerusalem. It's not there yet. That's why we're still praying 3 times a day in our prayers for the rebuilding of Zion, of Zion, of Jerusalem, because it's not rebuilt. So it's precarious. We can't sin in the land of Israel. And there is a Torah commandment to love your neighbor like yourself. And what do we see over there? They're always shouting at each other. Sometimes, I'm not saying everybody, and some of them are the most beautiful people. We know that. But there is a problem. There's certainly a problem between religious and not religious, but there's also a problem within each of these groups. And this story of what happened here, that some people decided they want to put out flyers to say the shiur is canceled, it's despicable. I don't think it would have happened here. But we have to be extra careful in the land of Israel, because the land of Israel doesn't tolerate this kind of behavior, transgressing, going against the Torah from Jews. The Canaanim and the others, it's a different story. But the Jews, it doesn't put up with them. So we have to be very, very careful. I do want to tell you a story that is related to that, of somebody I know. He's a friend of mine. He's a rabbi. He's mainstream, black hatter, Orthodox. And I don't know what the story is. He was telling me the story recently. He has some friends. His family is friendly with another family of Israelis who come periodically to America. I don't know how they got together, and they're friendly and they get on very well together. Now, this family is not religious at all. Not at all. So recently, they were at his house. They were visiting, I guess on vacation or something. And the wife, as I said, they're not religious. The wife said to him, "Are you Orthodox?" He was very startled. He said, "Yes." And she's looking at him, she's going like this. She says, "You maybe modern?" He's saying, no, just, regular yeshiva Orthodox. And I'll tell you what was going on. The husband understood and he answered. I'll tell you what was happening. They're not used to being able to talk to religious people and have a good conversation and a friendly conversation. And the husband said, he said to his wife, "No, it's different. This is America." It's a very, very sad thing. And I would urge my Israeli brethren, if they're here tonight or they're watching it on videos later on, you have 3 beautiful sites to watch it on at least. It may get spread to more later. You've got to work together. You've got to work together. You've got to love each other. Loving each other does not mean you have to be the same. Of course I want everybody to be religious. Of course that's the way. Of course we all have to follow the path of the Torah. But if somebody is doing the wrong thing, let's say your own brother in your family, your sister was doing the wrong thing, would you treat them like dirt? Or would the one who's doing the wrong thing treat the one who's doing the right thing like dirt? No, you would get on with each other. You'd say, I'm a little embarrassed when you're talking to somebody else about them, but you would treat each other with decency, with respect. You would try to convince them. Both sides would try to convince the other of their point of view. Whether the other one listens or not is secondary at this point. But you get on with each other. So I would want to urge my Israeli brethren to adopt a different attitude. It doesn't mean that we're doing it right here either, but I think it's not quite as bad. And I just want to tell you another little story connected with Israelis. I know somebody, actually my family knows somebody, who is involved with security at El Al. And he was telling me a story which was fascinating. His job is to go all over the world, but there's something going on in whatever. This country, they fly him out there, and he's there for 2-3 weeks with security, whatever. So in one of these countries, he said, the pilot came to security. And that came as a surprise to me. I didn't realize that the pilots have to go through El Al security. And he also said it doesn't fully make sense because he says he's the pilot. If he wants, he can bring the plane down. I imagine they have safeguards, but we've seen that happen. I don't know, like Egypt Air and others where they suspected, I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but they suspected the pilot brought the plane down. So he says a pilot comes to security. And the girl who's there for security is checking his bags or whatever, and he has a package. And she says to him, I need to know what's in this package. He says, I'm not telling you. It's none of your business. She says, I'm sorry, but I need to know what's in the package. Otherwise, we can't let it through. I will not tell you. And he's getting belligerent. So she calls this guy, Ron. She says, Ron, come here, please. So he comes. He's like the manager over there. And the pilot immediately says, this girl, she's giving me such a hard time. What's the matter with her? I'm the pilot, don't you know? Can't you see? He says, that's fine. He says, what's in the package? I'm not telling you. It's personal. He says, I'm sorry, but I need to know. Otherwise, this bag cannot go on the aircraft. He says, if the bag doesn't go, I'm not going. He says, fine. You don't have to fly. He told me something interesting, which I didn't know. He says, there have to be 3 pilots on every flight. Pilot and co-pilot. There have to be 3 of them. He says, El Al has 4. He says, so it would have been okay if the guy didn't fly. He says, no, I have to. He says, no, tell me what's in it. I can't, it's personal. He says, I don't care what's in it. He says, it can be pornography. That's your problem, not mine. He says, I just want to know that it's not a danger to the plane. I'm not telling you. He says, then you're not flying. He says, okay, I'll tell you. What's in it? A snorkel. He says, you couldn't tell me that? So when you go swimming underwater and you can breathe. You couldn't tell me that? I said, what's the problem? He says, I'll tell you. The problem is that the El Al pilots, not just El Al, were top-notch pilots in the Israeli Air Force, the IDF. Then when they finished with it, they got jobs as effectively taxi drivers, meaning they pick up passengers, they go up in the air, they bring them down, they let them off, then they pick up more passengers, they go up in the air, they bring them down. He says they can't deal with it. And he told me more stories about pilots, all connected with this. Why am I telling you this story? Because we have to understand, if we have a problem within ourselves about who we are, and we're not happy with ourselves and who we are, we cannot love another person. In order to love another person, you have to love yourself. By that, I don't mean you have to be arrogant. If you're arrogant, you got no room for another person. There's no room if you're arrogant for another person in your life. But if you're arrogant, you don't have good self-esteem. It's as simple as that. A person who has truly good self-esteem can be very humble. And if you're humble, and you're happy with yourself, then you can love the other person. If you're not happy with yourself, there's no one in the world you can love other than yourself. And you don't really love yourself either. Sometimes in making peace with another person and getting on with another person, the bigger of the two has to be the one to make the peace. I want to tell you a story about the very holy Mekubal Kabbalist, Hacham Yehuda Ftaya alav Shalom. He was in Baghdad, and eventually he moved to the land of Israel, and there were amazing stories about him, which is for another time. Amazing stories where Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai himself came in dreams to the greatest Hachamim in Yerushalayim to tell him that he was coming, and there was stuff that nobody knew, that Hacham Yehuda Ftaya himself had never told anybody, and they went to him, they said, we had this dream, is it true? And he was stunned because it was true. Just give you some background. At the age of 17, I'd heard the story from my father, alav Shalom, but I read it again more recently. At the age of 17, he was in, the story I read said that he was in the Beit Midrash of Hacham Abdallah Somech. I know that he was in with a lot of Hachamim, and Hacham Abdallah Somech, who was the greatest rabbi in Baghdad, who was the teacher of the Ben Ish Hai, and of course he would in the future stand for the Ben Ish Hai because the Ben Ish Hai became that much greater. But he was a huge, huge, huge Hacham, and the most respected at the time. Hacham Yehuda Ftaya was 17. 17. They were all in the Beit Midrash, and the time came, I believe, for Minha. And somebody told, he was not Hacham at the time, Yehuda Ftaya, a 17-year-old boy who was steeped in Torah already, to go up and lead the prayer. Immediately some of the older people started mumbling and murmuring, what, this little young whippersnapper is going to be leading the prayer, and we're all here? Hacham Abdallah Somech alav Shalom heard this. He got very angry. He jumped to his feet, put his hands on Yehuda Ftaya, and said, from now, you are Hacham Yehuda Ftaya. And he gave him semicha, he made him a Hacham on all areas of the Torah. And nobody said a word from that day on. And of course, he led the prayer. Among the important works that he wrote was a work called Minhat Yehuda. It is a spooky work, if I dare say so. He was very involved in work pertaining to removing spirits and, could we call it, exorcism. And in his work, which he published when he was 74, he mentions names, dates, places, so that every single fact could be corroborated. And they were. And then subsequently, when he went to Israel, many of the big Hachamim there, who've now also passed on, personally attested to things that they saw. I tell you, I used to teach this work before Minha on Shabbat. And 1 week, after many weeks of doing this, one of the people who used to come to my shi'ur, to my class, came to me and he said, Rabbi, forgive me. I'm not going to be coming to this class anymore. I said, why? He said, because I can't sleep at night. Okay. There's one story there I want to tell you that I find particularly fascinating. It concerns the infamous Shabbatai Tzvi. 237 years after his death, his spirit went into a person called Bechor. And Hacham Yehuda Ftaya alav Shalom was dealing with it. And this spirit was giving him a hard time. He went to Hacham Shimon Arasi, who was one of the main Rabbanim in Baghdad. He was the one who eventually took over from the Ben Ish Hai after he passed away. And he told him that this is what he was doing. He was dealing with the spirit of Shabbatai Tzvi. Hacham Shimon Arasi went to the holy Ben Ish Hai, Hacham Yosef Haim alav Shalom, and he said, this is the case. He says, tell him to stop immediately. This is a very dangerous spirit. And they both told him that. And he says in his work, he says that he didn't listen. He still went ahead, but he said because they warned him, he started dealing very delicately with the spirit of Shabbatai Tzvi. And at the end, he said he succeeded in exorcising the spirit from this person, and the soul had the zechut, the merit, to descend to Gehenna, down to hell. 237 years after he died. That was apparently a step in the right direction. All right, to get to the story. Apparently, he used to, at times, deal with these spirits in the women's section of the synagogue. And there would be women and young ladies, girls, who would stand outside the window and watch this. Now, who did not approve of this at all was Morenu Rabbeinu Hacham Yosef Haim, the Holy Ben Ish Haim. And he asked him to stop. Hacham Yudaftaya, who was also one of his Talmidim, answered that if he, Hacham Yosef Haim, would be able to get the people to stop their terrible custom, their terrible minhag of pouring out water and salt for the demons, so that a person who was sick would get healed, then he would stop what he was doing. And they say that Yonu Zenu Hacham Yosef Haim spoke about this over and over and over in his drashot, and was to no avail, which is very surprising, because normally the slightest thing he said, everybody did. The problem was that this caused a lot of discord between the two of them, between Hacham Yosef Haim and Hacham Yudaftaya, Aleim Shalom. And they did not speak to each other for 7 years. 7 years. And they were in one city. They must have been, I don't know, in close proximity quite often. 7 years later, they met at a Mila. And the very senior of the two, Hacham Yosef Haim, Alav Shalom, said to Hacham Yudaftaya, "How are you? How many children do you have?" He answered, 3 girls. They hadn't spoken for 7 years. 3 girls. And you know, in those days, it was a big deal to have boys. Though Hacham Yosef Haim writes about how mistaken people are. That's for another time. So Hacham Yosef Haim blessed him at that point that he would have boys, and that's exactly what happened. And from that day on, there was peace between them. So we see, when the opportunity arose, it was Hacham Yosef Haim who seized the opportunity. We must learn from his humility, and he was a giant, recognized around the world, but he was extremely humble. And we must never feel too important to make peace and love our fellow man. It says in Debrei Haim, going on, this famous pasuk that I'm going to finally memorize by the end of the evening. He says that people ask, this is by the way Hacham Yosef Haim, who's speaking about him, I want to quote one of his works. People ask, when they want help from someone, they want money, they want help, they want you to speak on their behalf, or they need something, or they need food, or they need a blanket, whatever it is they need, they always quote this pasuk. They go to the person, especially the person who doesn't want to give, doesn't want to help, they say, if the Torah says you have to love your fellow man like yourself, just like you would give yourself food, just like you would take care of yourself, you've got to do for me also. We have to love each and every Jew, just like we love ourselves. He says, that's true. That's 100% true. He says, but what is often not so obvious to people is that when a person does what appears to be the opposite, a person reproaches his neighbor about a transgression that he committed to try and prevent him from doing something wrong again in the future, from doing another sin in the future, he's also performing the Masada commandment of Ahavta l'recha kamocha. You see your neighbor doing something wrong, and you go up to him nicely, and you indicate to him that what he's doing is wrong, and he shouldn't do that. You are loving your neighbor like yourself. So whether you help him in a physical or in a spiritual manner, you're demonstrating love for the other person because you care for that person, and you don't want anything bad to happen to them. The question is, what is a human being? Is a human being only flesh and blood? Is that all we are? No. The Jewish people, the key element of a Jewish person is the holy neshama, the holy soul that only Jews have, which come from under the kisei hakabod, that come from under God's holy throne itself. But it can't function in a physical world without physical clothing. So the flesh and blood that we are, this, right, that we feel, is just clothing for the neshama, for the soul, as opposed to the nefesh, which is the life. I'm not just, it's very important. But the neshama is the highest level of the 3 souls. And the holy neshama has no benefit, other than the fact that it can survive in this world, has no benefit from all the indulgences, should we say, of the body. So in other words, if we see a food we like, we eat it because we like it and we overeat, or other pleasures of this world. The neshama doesn't need this. The neshama just needs the body to survive. Since it has no direct benefit from the body, if a man comes to another man and helps him in a matter pertaining to his soul, stops him from sinning again in the future, then that person is doing an incredible kindness to the person that he is going to. Spiritual love, we have to understand this, spiritual love for your fellow man is far greater than the loving kindness that you can do for the physical side of a person. People don't think about that, and that is what he's trying to bring out here. We always think about what we can do to help them in a physical matter. What you can do to help your fellow Jew spiritually is even far more important than that. So we should maybe say, love your neighbor as yourself spiritually. That is the highest level. It says in Sefer Devarim, Lo ter'eh shor achicha otseyo nidahim. You must not see your neighbor's ox or sheep lost on the way. We don't usually see that nowadays too much, not here anyway, but whatever, we understand the meaning. If you see your neighbor's chattels, you see the animals lost on the way, what should you do? Well, I mean, this is New York. I didn't see anything. You saw anything? I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. What are you saying? What are you saying? Don't get involved. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to try and find who it is? Leave me alone. What, you're going to call the police? Don't get involved. This is New York. They're just getting in trouble. They're going to accuse you of something. Just pretend you didn't see it. Keep moving on. Torah says no. You're not allowed to with alam tameim. You're not allowed to hide yourself from them. On the contrary, it says, Hashem teshibim. It's a double lashon here, which the Torah often uses to stress something. It says Hashem and Teshibim, which essentially means the same thing, and we translate it in English as, you shall surely return them le'achicha, to your brother. The Torah says, no, you can't say, I didn't see it, I didn't see it. You have to surely return them to your brother. So, what we have to understand is this. If we see a fellow Jew's animal go astray, we have an obligation to return it. Okay. How much more so if we see his holy neshama getting lost, going down the wrong path, that we have an obligation to try and return it and put it back on the right path? Would we say that in this case it's okay to make ourselves scarce? I don't see it. I don't know what he's doing. I don't care. The Torah is talking about his sheep. You know, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know where he hangs out at night. No, we have an obligation to bring him back with sweet words. Why does the Torah use a doubling of the lashon? Why does it say Hashem teshibem, which we have translated in one phrase, you shall surely return? He says because there are two returnings. This applies both to his animals or his objects, and it applies to his soul. That's why the Torah writes it twice. But again, I want to reiterate that when you're dealing with a matter like this, saying it sweetly is very, very important. If you're going to start shouting at people, you're going to alienate them even more. The Holy Pelioes, the Pelioes HaKadosh, speaking about this also, There is the Gemara of Shabbat tells us, something that is hated by you, lehaberach la ta'abid. Don't do to your neighbor. All right? I mean, it's a similar idea. It's a similar idea. That you have to love your neighbor, but okay, let's just take it further. He says, something we have to understand. What is our greatest problem in doing any of the mitzvot? What is the greatest problem we have in anything that we're supposed to do? Anything that's good? What's the greatest problem we all have? The answer is this, is depending on how great the good that is going to come from it, that is the level to which the Yetzer Hara are dirty, stinky, whatever evil inclination will rise to make sure that we stumble and don't do what it is we're supposed to do. He says, and it works on us every day. Every day it tries to overcome us. To what extent? He says, I'll tell you to what extent. To the extent that for our great sins, as we mentioned before, in the area of Sinat Hinam, baseless hatred, Yerushalayim, the Beit HaMikdash, were destroyed and we're all in Galuth. And as I said to you before, we're still in Galuth. Even in the land of Israel, we're in Galuth, we're in exile. And he says, the Satan is dancing among us. Because of the way we're behaving. He's dancing, he's so happy. Not only are we interested in ourselves, I'm still quoting him by the way, but he says some actually rejoice at the downfall of others. You know that. Oh, this happened to him, serves him right. I'm so happy, I'm so happy. He says, you think that's bad enough? He says, no. There are those who at the slightest opportunity would destroy the other person if they could. You've seen that also. Nobody here, I know, but you've seen it happen. He says, Sur mera wa tov, keep away from doing bad and do good. He says, and this applies not just to your actions, but also to your speech. With speech, what should we do with speech? He says, don't say something which is distasteful to you. This is very important. We love Lashon Hara. And we love telling ourselves that I'm going to tell you something. Wait a minute, it's not Lashon Hara. Okay, I can tell you. How do you know it's not Lashon Hara? I'll tell you how you can know. Stop for a minute and think that this is about you that you're speaking, and somebody's going to say exactly these words that you're going to say about you. Are you happy with that? You, quote unquote, cool with that? Doesn't bother you? Go ahead, say it. But is there a little tinge, a twang, or something that is getting to you that someone would say that about you? However true it might be? That's Lashon Hara. Don't say it. He says, the Yetzer Hara is the master deceiver. And he says that if it's in a financial area, it's unbelievable. If you have an opportunity, you have all the facts. It's between you and another guy, your neighbor. And who should have the money? Should you give him the money, not give him the money? Whatever the financial problem is, you have all the facts and you can see clearly, you almost certainly will decide in favor of yourself, even if it's not correct. He says, you're transgressing right there. You have to be very careful because this is how the Yetzer Hara works. Now, we're saying, don't say anything negative about the other person. But wait a minute, that's not enough. Loving your neighbor means you got to start saying the positive to them also. You got to make them feel good. And certainly you can't embarrass somebody. You know, there's a problem with embarrassing in public, but what people don't realize is you can't embarrass in private with nobody else there. If you have to tell somebody something, you can tell it to them in a way that won't embarrass them. Give them good self-esteem. And you know what? If you can give another person good self-esteem, like I said before, they're in a better position to love you and take care of you and be nice to you. Depending on the level of pain that you put into a relationship, the fum sa'ara ara, that is the level of reward that you get. Why? When our rabbis tell us, depending on the level of pain, that is your reward. Why does that happen? I'll tell you what the Holy Pele Yohai says, and I think it's dynamite. He says, the greater the level of pain, when you do something good, the greater the level of satisfaction that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets. And since HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets a higher level of satisfaction, he gives you a greater reward. That's how it works. And he adds one more thing he adds a lot more things, which I'm not telling you now, but he adds one more thing, which is, we're all descended from Adam HaRishon, from Adam, which makes us all blood brothers. He says it's like we're one person. He says, would you have pity on one of your limbs if there was a problem with it? Of course you would. You go running to the doctor, get it taken care of. He says, so we're like all one body and should have pity on every single one of our people. I read an interesting thing which I thought was cute. If somebody throws a stone at you, throw them back a flower. But depending on what your opinion is about loving your fellow Jew, throwing back the flower could be done in two different ways. Way number one is you just throw the flower. Way number two is you throw it with the flower pot attached. I'm not going to tell you all in this lecture which one is the one that you should do. Okay, I'm going to let you all figure it out. It says in the Guevara Batra that Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai said that Abraham Aveeno, alav Shalom, had a precious stone hung around his neck. Now, this stone brought immediate healing to any person who was sick and looked at it. When Abraham Aveeno, alav Shalom, departed from this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu hung it around the orb of the sun, and that's where it is now. I'd like to speak about this, and I'm going to end with this, with your permission. Even without your permission, I'm going to end with this. But with your permission, so much better. Missive Haim, alav Shalom, says, there appears to be some difficulty understanding this. First and foremost, how do we understand Abraham Aveeno wearing this? What did he have, a big gold chain around his neck with a huge stone? Abraham Aveeno walking around with a big necklace? And that's Beged Isha, isn't that? That's woman's clothing. So what is that saying? That doesn't make any sense to us. So how do we understand this? Furthermore, there's another question. In the Gemara Baba Messiah, we're told that at the time of Yaaqob Aveeno, who was the grandson of Abraham Aveeno, till the time of Yaaqob Aveeno, there was no such thing as sickness in the world. There was no sickness. If a person's time came to die, he died. The rest of the time, he was very healthy. The hospitals were not happy in those days, I want you to know. What? Whatever it is. So, what do you mean that the sick person at the time of Abraham Aveeno would look at the stone and would be healed? There were no sick people. What's going on? Everyone was healthy. He answers as follows. He says, what the story is telling us is not that this was a regular precious stone, a big diamond, a ruby, or whatever it was. It was a spiritual stone that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, graced Abraham Aveeno with. And what was the spiritual stone? Was the ability of Abraham Aveeno to bring people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we know that his whole existence with Sarah Imenu was reaching out to people and showing them the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there was a creator in the world, there was a God in the world, which people didn't know. He was the first one to come up with this incredible thought by looking around and realizing it couldn't just be. It certainly couldn't have been their idols that created this world. So this was the spiritual stone that he was blessed with, this ability to be able to speak and convince people and bring people closer to God. So, what is this about the sick people? The sick people were the people who were spiritually sick, who didn't see God. The people who believed in idolatry. And when they saw this spiritual stone, which was his ability to speak to them and love them and bring them in, they were healed because they believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so what's the connection now between Abraham Aveeno and the orb of the sun? The sun, what better witness is there, or not witness, what better proof is there of the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu than the sun, which comes and rises and shines on us every day and does everything that it does for us every day. This is the ultimate proof of the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what God is doing and saying here is that the stone didn't disappear. It just got passed to the sun to bring proof to the world that there is a God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The greatest thing we can do in loving each other is to take care of each other's souls. If we'll do that, we'll take care of the rest also. Those of us around us, all of us, should we say, without exception, need somebody to help us grow. We're all doing something that's not right. We need that help. And if you see someone really going down the wrong path, you need to love that person. And you need to show them they're doing the wrong thing with love, because that's the way you will achieve it. Not by fighting and shouting or putting up a sign that a shiur is canceled. That's not going to do it. Not by throwing stones at people. That's not going to do it. Only through loving each other. Because our job as Jews is the path of the Torah. It is to be a beacon to the rest of the world. As we said, we're still suffering because the Beit HaMikdash, which was destroyed on account of baseless hatred, has not been rebuilt. It is our prayer that and we should start with us, you and me, all of us here, go out, say something nice to somebody when you see them. Not something phony, but something real. You see a person do something good and bad, compliment the good. And hopefully if we can do that and love each other and show the other person that we really care for each other and really, really, really follow the Torah commandment of love your fellow man like yourself, hopefully for that zechut, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will soon bring us the rebuilding and the coming of the final, the third Beit HaMikdash, the rebuilding of Yerushalayim. May we witness it speedily in our days. B'mira b'yameinu v'chen yirasom v'nomar amen.